Yeah. Okay, we'll start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. I hope everybody had a very nice Purim. I know last week, it seems like it was just yesterday that we were fasting and getting ready for the Megillah reading. And now, as I said in my email, on to Pesach. So it's, as we know, 4 weeks after Purim is Pesach. So we even got our first shopping. We got our 5-pound box of matzah. So like, okay, we're good. Got matzah. We're in for it. So we're looking forward to it, and we'll be on as far as the next few weeks. I'm not sure. I would love to be ready and to say that on Thursday, right before Pesach, that we'll be able to have class. And so you are my inspiration to try to get there, but I'm not going to promise, and I'll certainly let everybody know beforehand, probably the week before, let everybody know. But it'd be very inspiring for me to get to be with all of you right before Pesach, but we'll see how everything is going. In the meantime, we are on Parsha Ki Tisa. Parsha Ki Tisa begins, for those of you who are in the Chumash, is on page 485. It is Exodus chapter 30, verse 11. And hold on a second. And this Parsha is the Parsha that features, as Dale has so conveniently provided for us, the golden calf incident, and also featuring Moshe with the tablets in his hands that he's going to be breaking. We're actually going to be talking about Moshe and those tablets, several really beautiful ideas to share. So I would say that what we have for today is a potpourri of ideas from Parsha Ki Tisa that will hopefully inspire us for the week and for Shabbos and for the time to come as well. So let's start first with the giving of the tablets. If we turn to page 493, actually, I take this back. Before we go ahead, I want to share this with you. I shared on Tuesday, but since not everybody is there, I want to make sure everybody knows because it's so interesting. The way the aliyahs are broken out in this week's Parsha, which somehow I never knew in any of the previous years, I'm not sure how it escaped me exactly, but the aliyahs are laid out differently. Normally, there are always 7 aliyahs, and they're not exactly the same length, but they're more or less the same length, except for this Parsha. Except for this Parsha, where we see that the first 2 aliyahs span from page 485 to page 503, or 504, or 505. So we have from page 485 to 505 are only 2 aliyahs. And then after that, all the rest of the aliyahs, if you look how it's broken out, they're all about the same length. So like, what's up with that? Why is it divided like that? So it's for a very interesting and sensitive reason. Because this is the Torah portion about the worshiping of the golden calf, and the Jewish people was such a huge sin and wrongdoing, it's the whole incident is kind of embarrassing for the Jewish people. It's like we don't get to rewrite history and pretend that we didn't do this and edit it out. So it needs to be read, and we need to know, and we need to learn the lesson. However, it's almost as if we don't have to rub people's faces in it exactly. So the way it's divided up is to have only the first 2 aliyahs, which are given to the Kohanim, a Kohen and a Levi. The Kohanim, who are the priests, are from the tribe of Levi. So it's the tribe of Levi. The tribe of Levi was the only tribe that did not participate at all in the golden calf. So what our sages have done is they said, let's just have the Levi people, which are the Kohanim and the Leviim, we'll have them have the aliyah for the reading of the golden calf, because to call up like a regular one of the other tribe Jewish people, the Yisrael group, is embarrassing. It's like having to read your own rap sheet. It's like, and then I did this and then I did that. It's like, let's have people who weren't directly involved and in fact who were meritorious they'll have the honor, they'll be up there following every word in the Torah. And everybody else, yes, they need to hear it, but you don't have to give someone the honor of reading the rap sheet. So that's why it is divided in that way. So there's this huge thing, and it goes all the way until the end of the discussion of the golden calf. And then when it's ready to proceed with the rest of the Parsha, then we next call up a Yisrael, the third Aliyah. So that's why it's broken down so weirdly. Dale, yes.
So in synagogues that have egalitarian services, given the women did not give their jewelry for the calf, women read those too?
I wouldn't know, but that's certainly a good question. That would certainly follow along that line. But it's the same thing as like, this isn't our thing. This is a reason also why men are not supposed to wear jewelry, just as this is one of the things, is because they gave their jewelry for the building of the golden calf. And so jewelry is something that men are traditionally don't wear because it kind of harkens back, especially gold jewelry, because like it's a little bit like wearing evidence of the crime on you. So men don't wear jewelry. It says beforehand they did, because in the description for the building of the golden calf, it says, take the jewelry from everybody. And it didn't say just from your wives. It says from everybody, because the assumption was that people were wearing jewelry, that was thing. But after that, then it was considered not such a great idea. So that is the just the way the Parsha is structured. And I've been sitting in synagogue for pretty many years, and I never noticed that those two aliyahs were so long, and then the rest of them were so much shorter. So that's why, and even just I so appreciate the sensitivity to that. The truth is, nobody we know participated in the sin of the golden calf. So you could say, this wasn't me. It's like, oh, actually, yes, it was. It was your ancestors. And we take, if we're going to take credit for our ancestors' good things that they did and accomplishments, we also attach ourselves to the account of the missteps and the mistakes. So we do take it seriously. We don't say, well, that was them and that was then and this is now. We say, that was then and this is now. It's kind of the same thing. So we kind of learned both those ideas from just the structural setup of the aliyahs themselves. So now into the aliyahs. We're going to first take a look on page 493 that God is going to give Moshe the tablets on behalf of the Jewish people. This is chapter 31, chapter 31, verse 18. It says, when God finished speaking to him on Mount Sinai, meaning Moshe, he gave Moshe the 2 tablets of testimony, stone tablets inscribed by the finger of God. Okay, now what's very interesting is that it says he gave Moshe the 2 tablets. That seems kind of a little redundant to say. Of course he would give him the tablets. That's what he went up to do, was to get the tablets. What's interesting is in the Hebrew, which is next to the word sheni, or the letter Yud Chet in the margin, it says Vayitain el Moshe, and he gave to Moshe kachaloto, like when he finished, kachaloto ledaberito, when he finished speaking with him, Bahar Sinai at Mount Sinai, Shnei Luchot, and the 2 tablets, ha'edut, of testimony. The way the word is spelled, kachaloto, which means when he finished speaking with him, when he finished, is also it has a deficient spelling. It is spelled almost to hint at the word a kala. A kala, what does a kala mean? Some people think it's challah, but we're not. Challah and kala are 2 different words. Challah is what we eat, and kala is, I'm getting so good at reading lists. Bride. All right, a bride. So he gave the tablets to Moshe like a groom gives a bride a gift on her wedding day. That's one of the things that's supposed to happen after the wedding. When the bride and groom go into the private room, is the groom is supposed to give the bride a gift. And just like you say, like, isn't the whole wedding a gift? Like you're marrying, is it? But no, you give somebody a gift. And that God gave the Moshe, like the bride, the Jewish people being the bride, the gift of the luchot, the gift of the tablets. And that this gift is, sometimes, it could be something small, but it's a token of the groom's love and dedication and appreciation and affection, etc. So that's how God gave this gift of the luchot, of the tablets, to Moshe as the representative, as the bride's representative, for the entire Jewish people, and carried them down. So what is the emotion that someone would feel receiving a gift like this? It's like God's handiwork. It said it was written with the finger of God. It's like, what is the gift? Oh, I'm sorry, what is the emotion that one would feel receiving this? And in that way, also then on behalf of the entire Jewish people, how should the Jewish people be feeling having this kind of gift? If anybody wants to unmute and say, feel free. How would you feel? Beth Ann, you're unmuted. What was?
I think I would feel absolutely overwhelmed, perhaps a bit unworthy, humbled, and grateful, and just really, really connected to Hashem.
Beautiful. So everything that Beth Ann said, humbled, overwhelmed, almost like a little embarrassed, like, do I deserve this? It's like if somebody gives you, even just somebody like a friend gives you an incredible gift that you feel like that you don't really deserve, and you say, oh, not like you shouldn't have, like, I'm so honored, but kind of like, oh my gosh, there is a sense of humility, and like, I'm so overwhelmed. It says, this was the gift. It says, the truth is this is how we should feel about everything that we get from God, that we should have a sense of, and I'll say embarrassment, and I don't mean it in a mean way. It's the humility kind of embarrassment, where you're getting something that you don't really deserve. It'd be like if you showed up at a party and someone said, I want you to meet so-and-so. She single-handedly, saved the day, saved the world, did everything, blah, blah, blah. And they went on and on and on and on, way above and beyond what you actually did. You would be like, it makes you uncomfortable. It should be, unless you're like an egomaniac. It should make you very uncomfortable, because there's not a match. It's like, I didn't really do that. All I did is I put the name tags on the table, for the place settings. That's all I really did. It's like I did not. Since when we look at what we really do compared to what God gives us, we should have a sense of a little bit of shyness, embarrassment, unworthiness, humility, and gratitude. And that's how we should feel. Now we're going to juxtapose it as at this very moment when God is giving this gift to Moshe for the Jewish people, what are the Jewish people doing? Talk about embarrassing. They're dancing and worshiping the golden calf. It'd be like the groom gives the bride a present, and meanwhile she's like sneaking off into whatever room, and she's kissing her ex-boyfriend. It's like there's a bit of a mismatch here of this relationship. And it says that God knows it. So when God is the one who tells Moshe, your people have like descended, it's not like God didn't know. So at the very moment that we are engaged in a major disconnect, the opposite of what Beth Ann said, I'm so connected, at the very moment of this complete connection and gift and overwhelming appreciation, gratitude, humility, unworthiness, the people are involved in the most visible sign of a disconnect. And yet God does not say to Moshe, you know what, on second thought, I'm not going to give you these tablets because the people aren't worthy. He goes ahead and gives Moshe the tablets. And the fact that he did that is like such a sign of, it's already a sense of, sorry about that, of forgiveness, a sense of awareness of our fallibility, whatever you want to call it. The fact that God provides for us, even when we are doing something wrong, and not only are we doing something wrong, we're using the very things that God gave us to do something wrong. And yet he still provides for us. If it would have been me, it would be like, you know what, people, no more manna, no more water from the well. I'm taking away your wealth, and you can all just wander in the desert by yourself if this is how you're going to be. Instead, God is like, still provide the manna, still provide the water, still going to be with you. It's like, thank you. So it's not just contrition. It is in Hebrew it's called busha. There's not really a good English word. There's just oh my gosh, I'm so humbled. Daisy, do you want to unmute? Are you trying to say what it is?
Shame.
Shame. It is shame, but it's not the kind of shame we talk about today, like in body shaming and shaming, things like that, that's mean. It is a sense of shame of like where you would blush, because you are so embarrassed. You are ashamed. And that's a healthy shame. It's a healthy shame. Because
Ellyn?
yes, Helene.
But also, I understand what you're saying, but also, didn't he kill a lot of the Jews who participated in this?
Yes, the people who
So,
directly,
in one hand,
yes,
yeah, he's
the
doing
people who
that, and then
directly participated. So there was a
right.
punishment for people who directly participated and the people who participated wholeheartedly. So there are various kind of degrees of that, but the whole people was guilty because either they condoned
Yeah.
it, they stayed silent,
Yeah.
they were considered participants in some way, that they should have stopped it. They should have stopped it,
Yeah.
and they didn't.
Well, look
Yes,
at
Judy.
Aaron. I mean,
Yeah, and Aaron, he was really trying to delay the people. That was his goal. He was trying to delay them. Judy, yes.
I will just maybe pivot for a moment to think about it, maybe on a kind of a helicopter scale that, you know, I feel maybe God had knew the bigger plan, and that God's bigger plan was to overall save the Jewish people. Overall, that they would, I always go back to the Lech Lecha, that he was going to show them the land, and this was all part of the going. And he had the bigger plan. And I had read something my mother wrote the other night. She's a survivor, and she wrote, God never promised that he would save all the Jews, but he did promise to save the Jewish people.
That's so beautiful. And I'm very impressed, and it gives me chills that your mother, as a survivor, is able to convey that message.
Well,
Much better for her to say than for me to say.
Well, she probably copied it from somewhere, but it doesn't matter.
Well, she claimed it. I mean, she didn't, like exit out and say this is a bunch of bunk.
No.
I mean, she said that's true. And that's true.
So the humility, so the what do we call it? The people erring along the way is just part of the journey.
It is part of the journey. And in fact, we learn in this week's Parsha also the 13 attributes of mercy, which when exactly were those going to be revealed to us? Well, they only get revealed when we need mercy, which implies that there's going to be a major mistake, a major problem that's going to come up. And then when that comes, and then here's the antidote for it. So it's all part of it. And it's, it's just like a parent. I mean, God forbid we would be horrified. Let's say if a child does something horrific and a parent says well, you're not just like you're going to your room, but I'm never feeding you again. And I'm taking away all your clothes and I'm going to kick you out. It's like, there are sometimes maybe where that is the answer, but that is not the answer in parenting. And God is our ultimate parent. It's like, I'm trying to get you from here to there, and it's going to be rocky, and there are going to be things along the way. And it was also a test of Moshe, because as we said, God's reaction could have been, I'm not going to give you the tablets. But in a way, that it subverts the system. It doesn't let the process unfold. If every moment you take away or don't do, then you don't actually give a person a chance to grow and make the mistake, face the consequences, and move forward. So if God would have just said, I'm not giving you the tablets. So he gives them to Moshe. And in a way, it's like, and now Moshe, let's see what you do with these. Let's see what you do. And so he becomes the one who drops them, shatters them. And then we're going to talk about, did he drop them? Did he shatter them, or did they drop from him? Because there's two different messages in looking at that. And it's very beautiful understanding about that. So Judy, thank you again for sharing that. It was really, really lovely.
Thank you.
Okay, so these tablets, when Moshe drops them, but he drops them after he sees that the people are dancing. So I want to show, as a place of leadership, how he understands what's happening. This is really a very complex scenario. It's not the way it's portrayed in the movies. It's just like, oh, the Jews, they went crazy and they're worshiping the golden calf. They built it, they're dancing, they're coming unglued. It's not just that. So take a look at page 499, which is chapter 32, verse 17. Yehoshua, who is Moshe's right-hand person, never leaves him. Joshua did not go to the top of Mount Sinai with Moshe, but he also did not stay in the camp. He waited at the base of the mountain. He waited at some point to escort Moshe down. So it says in verse 17, Joshua heard the sound of the people in its shouting in the camp. And he said to Moshe, the sound of battle is in the camp. Because he thought it sounds like there's like a fight, there's a war, something's going on. And Moshe says to him, he said, verse 18, not a sound shouting strength, nor a sound shouting weakness. What does that mean? It means if you have a battle going on, there's one side prevailing and one side that's losing. And so you're going to have the shout of victors and you're going to have the moans and cries of the people who are being attacked. That's the sound of battle. He said that that's not what's going on. But he also doesn't say, you would expect him to say it's the sound of a party, but he doesn't say that. He said it's a sound of distress, do I hear? Like, well, that's interesting. How did he hear it was distress? So the commentators say that on one hand, Moshe is rebuking Joshua, kind of dramatic foreshadowing. As a future leader, you need to be able to read the people. You need to be able to hear their voices and hear the sound of like what they're saying and what they're really saying. And you got that one wrong. It is not the sound of battle. It's the sound of distress. Now, how did Moshe hear it as a sound of distress when it was the sound of partying? They were partying, they were dancing. So it's a beautiful insight. And it kind of brought back a memory from high school or junior high, which I'll share with you. Not one of my great moments, not like horrific, but not one of my great moments. So there is a sound that people make sometimes when they're having fun, but they're not really happy. They're doing something mischievous. They're doing something like, all the kids are doing it kind of thing. And they may be laughing, but it's really a sound of distress because it's not really bringing them happiness. It's like when people might be taunting somebody or doing something that's illicit. They might be laughing. It's fun. So just as an aside, there's no word in Hebrew for fun. That word does not exist. The word that is used is kef, and it's Arabic. Okay, there is no Hebrew word for fun. It's not a concept. There are lots of words for happiness, joy, pleasure, but not fun. That sometimes, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have fun, but it may not be the kind of fun we're talking about. So sometimes fun is at our soul's expense. There are a lot of things that are fun that should not really be giving us true happiness, joy, or pleasure. So my incident was, do you remember TPing? TPing people? So I was with my friends, and these were not like degenerate people. We were out and like, let's go TP. And like, I've never done this before, but okay, I'm such a goody good. So I went with them, and they're throwing the toilet papers over, and everyone's laughing and running around crazy. And I'm like, I just kind of felt sick. I'm like, this is not nice. I mean, what a mess we're making for people. They're going to have to clean up. So now at the beginning days of COVID, when there was a shortage of toilet paper, someone's like, could someone please come and TP my house? But that was not the scenario. So it was not a good thing to do. It was like, yes, people were laughing, but that's not the laughter of pleasure. That's the laughter of the Yetzer Hara getting you to do something that gives you a kick or some sort of something, but it's not. It really comes from a place of distress. And that's deeper soul distress. And that's what Moshe heard. It's like, yeah, they're totally off track here, but they are in spiritual distress. And that's what he heard. And it was just so interesting, just from the psychological perspective of how we hear people, of what emotion they are really feeling. And like you'll hear people, again, a group of people speaking Lashon Hara, saying something inappropriate or an off-color joke or an inappropriate joke, and people will laugh, but it'll be described as a nervous laughter. It's a laughter that people just do to kind of be part of the crowd. it's not that they are having deep soulful pleasure from this. They are not. And to be able to sort that out and not get into it, because sometimes we look at people who look like, oh, they're having such a fun time. It's like, really? Is that really a happy time? Is that deeply pleasurable, soulful time? Maybe not. So Moshe was able to differentiate this, and he's instructing Joshua on being able to hear this as a leader, that you gotta know your people and be able to understand people at a deeper level. And I'm sure people are therapists. Being a poor baby, I gotta ask, what about wholesome fun? Okay, that's simcha. That's what it is, simcha. Simcha is joy, happiness, and it should, it's also fun, like what we call fun, but it's a different, it's kind of like the fun of a fun house. Fun house fun is not fun. A fun house is usually makes you scared and nervous, okay? It distorts reality. I mean, I always say, like, unfortunately, when Steve and I got married, not unfortunately when we got married, unfortunately, for our wedding, the room that I got dressed in was the old all-purpose room at Road of Shalom, and it wasn't really set up to be dressed for your wedding. There was a mirror in there, and I always described it as like a funhouse mirror. You know, like if you have a mirror that's not good, it's kind of wavy and you don't look quite right. And I'm like, I look terrible. I'm like, no, it's the mirror. Like, it was just kind of like all wavy. Fun houses are not fun. They get a rise out of people, but it's not fun. So Tova, rest assured, you as a Purim baby, that's simcha, that we talk about simcha, because we talk about the simcha of Adar. It doesn't say when Adar comes in, the fun increases. It says when Adar comes in, marbim basimcha, that simcha increases. Simcha has elements of fun, but it is not the same thing as just fun. It was a lot of fun. People like talk about like a joyride. Joyriding, when you take someone's car, it's like, that's not fun. That is not, that's fun, but that's not simcha. There's a big difference between the two.
So Ellyn, can I just say thank you?
I'm sorry.
Thank you for that answer.
You are welcome, Tova.
And I also got to add that I always blame it on the mirror too. I always go, bad mirror, bad mirror.
A very bad mirror. I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, it was very wavy. I looked really weird. So I think, it was one of those things that probably somebody donated
No,
from
I'm
their
sure,
house.
I'm sure in your case
People
it was
like take
true.
it to the shul, like, oh, here, they can use it at the shul. It was like that kind of a thing. All right, so let's go back to our tablets here for a moment. When Moshe took the tablets and God gave them to him, let's go back to page 493. Chapter 31, verse 18, they are described as stone tablets. Okay, stone tablets. So now I heard this from, who did I just hear this from? I just heard this from Rabbi Yaakov Haber, said a friend of his who's like does all these, investigations into more in-depth technical material about the Torah, said that these tablets probably weighed about 1,500 pounds. Think about the stone you might have in your, like a garden, like even like a flagstone thing, which is pretty thin, but something that's solid stone, it's very heavy, very, very heavy. So 1,500 pounds. Said, how did Moshe carry that? How did he carry that? So there's beautiful midrash that said because it was carved by God, because it says that is inscribed by the finger of God, Hashem's finger, whatever that means, inscribed it, that the letters were carved out. It was written on both sides, and the letters were in there. That because it had that, it made it spiritually change the nature of it, and it made it weightless. They had no weight. And so when Moshe carried them, it wasn't that he had been, bulking up and getting buff. And so like, I'm prepared now to carry these tablets, which nobody could do even no matter how strong they were. He could carry them because they were weightless. And that what happened is that when he came down then and actually saw the people dancing with the golden calf, that then, and only then, it says that then he throws them down. They break at the bottom of the mountain. However, it says that, hold on one second, and the next verse on page 499, verse 19, it happened as he drew near the camp and saw the calf and the dances, that Moshe's anger flared up. He threw down the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. So look at the grammatical construction there. He threw down the tablets from his hands. Do you ever describe yourself like that? I threw down the whatever from my hands. If they were thrown down from his hands, it's passive. They were thrown down from his hands. So one explanation is that when he saw that, and kind of when the letters saw that, the letters on the tablet themselves, that the letters themselves, it says they flew up. They left the tablets, and he was left with just the weight of the tablets. And then they dropped and shattered because he could no longer carry them up. And that was the understanding of him shattering, that he didn't take them and throw them. Because I have to also say, when was the last time you took a piece of heavy stone and threw it and it broke? I mean, that's not so easy. Even talk about going back to a wedding, when the custom of the mother of the bride and the mother of the groom are supposed to break a plate, as part of it's called the Tanaim, as part of the ceremony. Do you know how hard it is to break a plate? It's like you have to find even like a really thin plate. They only break when you drop them on your floor like that. But that's like tiny plate. We're talking about heavy stone. A person throws down a piece of stone, the most it would do is roll away. It would not shatter. So it says that it came apart because the letters were kind of holding it and making it weightless, and then it dropped from his hands and then it shattered. So that is all well and good until we get to the replacement tablets. Because God tells Moshe later on page 507, which is the beginning of chapter 34 verse 1. Hashem said to Moshe, carve for yourself 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I shall inscribe on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you shattered. So be prepared in the morning, ascend Mount Sinai in the morning, and stand by me there. Okay, so now we have a problem. Moshe is going to carve out 2 stone tablets that are like the same as the first ones and carry them up. Well, how's he doing that? If we're talking about the same 1,500 pounds and they don't yet have God's writing on them, that means they're very, very heavy. So how did he carry them up? A beautiful idea. It says that when we are inspired and when we are optimistic and when we have our sights kind of set on God's plan, as Judy said, God's plan, we can carry a very heavy burden. It's like the story of the mother or the 65-year-old grandmother who lifts up the car that's pinning down her grandson. How'd she do that? It's like, well, when you love somebody, or even that song, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. It's like when we are motivated and when we have a sense of enthusiasm and commitment and everything else, it lightens the load. And we don't feel it in the same way. It says Moshe carried those tablets. Not only did he carry them, but enough to carry them down. He carried them up. He carried them up in anticipation of the renewed relationship and getting the second tablets, and he was able to carry them. So if we could look at our burdens and our challenges and put God into the equation and find the place of commitment and love, we've heard people like stories during the pandemic or during, I kind of always go back to major crises, but to September 11th, when people carried people down the flights of stairs that they normally would not have been able to carry. Or, whatever feats that physical feats that people are able to do because they are spiritually, emotionally, in some way motivated to do it, that then they can. But it doesn't just have to do with the physical things, it has to do with emotional burdens as well. We hear about people who, take care of very ill people in their homes, whether it's a children, a sibling, a parent, or whatever. It's like, how do they do that? How do they do that? It's like, some say, well, because they have to. But also they would say because they love them. And that when we love somebody and when we're committed and when we are engaged and optimistic, then we put God into the equation and we let God's letters become part of our story, then we can carry it. And that hopefully our burdens can be lightened in that way. But when we think we're just carrying stone, then we can't. Also, when it's precious, we can carry it. It says, if you ask me to carry a bag of just stone around, I would probably, give my maximum amount. But if someone said, I'm going to let you fill this bag with diamonds and you can have as many as you can carry, I think my physical strength would very magically increase. So weight of something is not necessarily an objective measure. It is experienced by what we bring to it and how we see what the weight is. So Moshe was able to take that heavy stone back up to Mount Sinai to have them be carved again because of what he knew it was going to become. And that way he would be able to do it. Any thoughts or ideas or questions about that? All right. Going back to when Moshe has to descend from the mountain, talk about the high point of your career. Here he is on the top of Mount Sinai. Jewish people have been led out of Egypt. We had the plagues. We had the crossing of the sea. We had the Jewish people all saying, "Nah, 70 Shema, we're going to do it." This is a dramatic high point of the Jewish people. And Moshe is, like, you could say, at the top of his game here. And then the golden calf happens. And what does God say to Moshe? He says to him, go back to page 495, verse 7 and 8. Hashem spoke to Moshe, this is chapter 32, verse 7, go descend, for your people that you brought up from Egypt has become corrupt. I just want to say that this sounds a little bit like the parent who says to the other parent, your child is misbehaving. It's like, what do you mean me? Like, you're the one who brought them out of Egypt. I didn't do that. Those are your people. But God is saying to Moshe, go descend, for your people that you brought up from Egypt has become corrupt. They have strayed quickly from the way that I have commanded them. They have made themselves a molten calf, etc. By talking to Moshe in this way, he basically says, you're being demoted. Moshe could have said, like, what did I do? I've been up here with you. The God is like, no, your people has become corrupt. It says Moshe's greatness was only on account of the greatness of the Jewish people. Yes, he was great in his own right, but not to the extent that would have allowed him to do what he did by going up to Mount Sinai and having this intimate experience with God and doing this. This is all in the merit of the Jewish people. So, which is very interesting because sometimes, we tend to idolize and we're going to and romanticize and like literally put Moshe up on a pedestal. And he was great, but his absolute greatness comes from the greatness of the Jewish people. That's what allowed him entree, you could say, into the heavens, was the collective merit of the Jewish people, which we also see. It says that's why the king of the Jewish people has such greatness. It's called the collective merit of the Jewish people rests in the king, which is why there's some things that are different for him because he carries that collective greatness. It's not that we say you're great, therefore you're great. It's our greatness that makes him great. And so God is saying to him, they have come down from that level, therefore you no longer have a place up here. You have to go down. So he doesn't say just go back to the camp. He says, go down because your people in whose merit you have reached this level has gone down, therefore you do not have a place up here anymore. So we learned some fabulous things about this just from our own lives. It says that when we achieve something on our own, whatever spiritual growth we achieve, whatever things, how we serve humanity, how we serve ourselves. Let's say you are a great person and you do your job really well, but it's really just for you. You sit in your house and you study or you do your own thing and it's all for yourself. You can become a great person, but it is nothing compared to the person who helps other people be great, who contributes to the collective community and society and makes other people great, facilitates their growth. That is a completely different greatness. And not only that, but the person who is doing that will be given the tools and the talents to achieve way more than they have for themselves. It's like, I only have this because of you. So Moshe's like, I only have this greatness because of you people, not because I stand Yes, on one hand, yes, he stands head and shoulders above everybody else, but not at the same level as he stands because of the merit of everybody else. So that when this is one of our, foremost ideas about not separating ourselves from the community, of engaging. And when it says you should teach, you should learn in order to teach. If you know Aleph, teach Aleph. And it's not just because we like to, get the word out. It's because we become greater and we will be given more help, more siyata dishmaya, more heavenly help to achieve things that we would not have been able to achieve without that. It says Moshe should not have been able to learn the Torah that he learned. He was a person. How did he learn it? How could God give him like such a big download? Only because of the Jewish people. So when that's no longer in effect, he has to go down. You go down. So this is also something that leaders are supposed to have some talk about humility. When people like are pumping themselves like, oh, I'm so great. It's like, excuse me, do you know whose shoulders you are standing on? The shoulders of other people, and you're being supported by them. Your greatness is not your own. It belongs to the people who you are helping, and I'm only giving it to you because you are helping them. And I can take it away really quickly and send you right down the mountain if that's not going to be the case. So it's just something I think for people, leaders to have in mind, and also for us to understand how much impact we have and can have on other people, and how it directly helps us, that we will be given that siyata dishmaya, we will be given heavenly help. We say this in the prayers, like, why do we have a special prayer on Shabbat morning, asking that the people who serve the needs of the community should be extra blessed? They should be forgiven their sins. They should be given help. They should, not have any illness. Everything should go well for them. It's like, why are we saying that they should? Like, what makes them so deserving? What makes them deserving is because they're helping the community. And that in and of itself gives you access to more resources. Your budget is bigger if you are helping other people and not just your intellectual, etc. Tova, I see your hand. Or is that from before? I'm not sure. Okay. If you have a question, feel free to unmute. Right, does anybody else have anything that they wanted to add right now?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay, yes, Tova.
So is he to blame? Did he have any blame at all in the situation?
That's a
I mean,
really,
he
really
must have
good
had
question.
something, because if God talked to him that way.
I think he was revealing an equation to him. Because it wasn't like, go down, bad boy. It was like, go down. You need to go down. And then before Moshe even sees what is happening, Moshe is already starting to plead with God in verse 11. And it's after Hashem says what the people are doing. Verse 11 on page 497, Moshe pleads before Hashem as God and says, why, Hashem, should your anger flare up against your people whom you've taken out of the land of Egypt with great power? Why should Egypt say the following, that you took them out, blah, blah, blah. And he's going on and on and on. And Hashem has already started forgiving. In verse 14, Hashem relented regarding the evil that he had declared he would do to his people. So, and then Moshe goes down. So he's like, Moshe is like the parent who is arguing with the principal about why this kid should be okay, and then goes home and smacks the kid. It's like, I'm here to defend you and to have words with you at the same time. That's good parenting. I've got your back and you're in big trouble. So this is the Moshe's like, what did I do to deserve this people? So this is the nature of it. So that Moshe was the humility of him as a leader. And God says, I will just destroy everybody and start over with you. And Moshe says, if I'm not included, you can just wipe me out, just erase me from your book if I'm not going to be part of this. And he wants to have his fate be with the Jewish people. And so he needs to negotiate and navigate. And notice he doesn't say that the Jewish people are innocent. He says, like, this is going to look so bad for you to Egypt. This is just going to be the news they can hardly wait to hear. It's like, yep, God took them out. He was planning to punish them anyway, and they're going to get their just desserts, and he's going to kill them. It's like, it's going to look really, really bad. Then he also says, and remember also the promise you made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that you were going to give the offspring and the heritage of the land. He is not calling on the merit of the Jewish people. He's calling on how bad it would look to the Egyptians and how it's like not right to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is not defending the people and what they did. So the question is Moshe to blame? Yes and no. The people are somewhat to blame because the reason they built the golden calf to begin with is because of the mistaken delay in their counting of having Moshe come back. He said he was going to be gone for 40 days. They thought that that included kind of like sitting Shiva, God forbid, or the day for a bris, that the day when he went up counted as that day, and he meant 40 complete days. So on what they thought was day 40, it says that the Yetzer Hara, the Satan showed the Jewish people some image of Moshe being dead. So they thought they didn't have a leader.
Oh,
That's why they went off. It wasn't like they were like, oh, the cat's away, the mice will play. Let's have a party with idolatry. That's why Moshe says they were in distress because they thought he was dead. And so when they say to Aaron that they want to make a god for them, they're not really making a god. If you go back to page 493, which is the beginning of chapter 32, verse 1, it specifically says, the people saw that Moshe had delayed in descending the mountain, and the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, rise up, make for us gods that will go before us. For this man Moshe who brought us up from Egypt, we do not know what became of him. This God was not a replacement of God. It was a replacement of Moshe. They needed a something. Who was going to lead them? The problem may have been is that they saw Moshe as a God. And then the problem was, you notice what they say? This man Moshe who brought us up from Egypt is like, oh my gosh, he's not a deity after all. He's just a man and now he's dead and we need something like we can rely on here. Build us a God. Because the normal response would have been, Aaron, you lead us. They knew that Aaron was second in command, but they're like, oh my gosh, these people, Moshe, he's just a man. So was there a problem? There was a problem on the people's part for almost coming to a place of worshiping Moshe, of deifying him. And so when they're looking for a replacement, they want some sort of a God thing. But you notice that God,
Why the golden calf? Why the golden calf? What was
by that
about
of
that?
all things.
Yeah.
So there's so many fascinating things about that. So first of all, it says Aaron wanted to stall, which is why he asks for gold. And he knew that the women wouldn't give. He knew that the women wouldn't give. And so there'd be a stalling. He figured, okay, let's just have them be busy gathering the materials and maybe Moshe will come back. And Aaron himself was not confident enough to say, guys, we mean tomorrow, not today. Because when people are nervous, do you ever notice when people are nervous about something, they don't necessarily want to hear logic or anything. They need to be appeased emotionally. So Aaron diverts their attention by saying, okay, go get gold, and let's delay. And then notice what he says to them on verse 5. Aaron saw and built an altar before him. Aaron called out and said, a festival for Hashem tomorrow. A festival for Hashem tomorrow. He was just trying to delay it and hope that it was going to be something. Now, what he tells Moshe, and this is also in the Midrash, is that he gathered this gold. They brought the gold, not from the women, but from the men and the boys, the guys. And he threw it into the fire, and out came the shape of a molten calf. Why that? Why this calf? So it represented where the people were still kind of at from their experience in Egypt. That would be that it would come out that, it's kind of like when someone goes, I'll say like off the wagon. It's like you revert to your weakness of your most immediate past. You don't tend to go to something brand new. If you are challenged by idolatry, you go back to an idolatrous, you go back to that kind of a figure. If you're challenged by drugs, you go back to drugs. If you're challenged by alcohol, you go back to alcohol. If you're challenged by being a kleptomaniac, you go back to that. It's like we have our weak point, that we fall into that place, and that's why it emerged in that way. The truth is I don't know, in spite of how this beautiful golden calf that we have from Gail is, I'm not sure if it actually looked like a golden calf or if it was like a Rorschach type of thing, is that's what they saw, but it's definitely called an Egel HaZahav, a golden calf. And that's what they were using, but it was a replacement for Moshe. It was not a replacement for God. That's why if you are the Jewish people's attorney, you would say, but Your Honor, he made it to replace me, a person. That's not idolatry exactly in the same way as replacing you, God. It was a big, big mistake, and it kind of, maybe pushing the envelope there, but there was some room, there was some wiggle room there. So it's a lot more complicated of an issue than it seems on the surface. And Moshe is aware of like all the levels that are at play, as is Aaron, he was trying to delay. He also thought it would be better to kind of be part of it, because it says in the Midrash that the Jewish people had killed already. They killed Hur. If you remember during the fight against the Amalekites, it said that Aaron and Hur were by Moshe's side, holding up his arms. And before Moshe goes up to Mount Sinai, he tells Aaron and Hur, he tells the people that Aaron and Hur are going to be in charge while he goes up. And let's see if it's here. Hold on a sec. Oh yeah. Oh no, that's not right. Sorry, that's not right. Let me see if I can find it. I don't see it. Okay. It's someplace, I don't see it offhand, that he had left Aaron and Hur in charge. And then when we get to the golden calf piece of the actual building, we don't see any mention of Hur. The Midrash comes and tells us that the people, there'd been like a riot and they killed Hur. And that Aaron was not like, I have to save my own skin, so I don't want to get killed. He didn't want the people to be guilty of another murder. There'd be one thing like in the kind of like in the heat of the moment and someone got killed, maybe whatever. But to then kill Aaron and to kill like the Kohen Gadol, that's like killing someone of high office. You're like in really big trouble. And so to kind of keep the Jewish people less culpable, even though they were already going down the wrong path, that he was like, okay, we're going to do this other thing, and let me, if I can kind of distract them. So it's very, very, very complicated here. Hi, the Jewish people. Okay, so this is yes, Helene. Yes, Helene.
Yeah. One more question. I had heard that the second time he brought down the tablets, it was different.
Yes.
Than what he originally.
Yes, the second tablets are, it says that they were written slightly differently, and there's an analysis of what those differences were, but I don't know what they are. So we know what we have, so that they were slightly different. And it says in the Torah was slightly different. It was like the Torah that's for a people who has gone off astray, as opposed to the people who were still in a good place. So going back to what Judy said, is that Hashem has the ultimate plan in mind, and we have plan A and we have plan B. And as we know, the broken tablets, those were kept in the ark as well. So it's not that we do not get rid of our mistakes in a way that we want to disown them. We own it. Now, again, going back to how we talked about the way the aliyahs are broken out, we don't necessarily have to have non-Levite people read about the golden calf and cause further embarrassment, but we don't delete it from our resume either. It's like, people going for a job and they see like a big chunk of time missing, and it's like, well, like, what were you doing between 1972 and 1983? It's like, if you were in prison, you wouldn't really say, and I was in prison, like, you'd be like, oh, I was learning life's lessons. You would say something that would kind of make light of it, but we don't say that. We like tell exactly what it is, which is again how we say that the Torah is, oh, thank you very much, Dale. Aaron and her in Parsha Bishalach, chapter 17, verse 12. Thank you. Let's turn to that. Bishalach, which is, actually I should know that because my birth Parsha. Bishalach. Thank you. That's not right what I just said. Mine's in Shalach. Bishalach and verse, I just lost the chat. Hold on, let me just.
Page 393.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sitting right here. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, yes, for them being on top of the mountain. Thank you very much. Page 393, and that Aaron and Hur went up with Moshe, so that Hur is seen as kind of like the next in command next to Aaron with Moshe. Thank you very much, Dale. Thank you. And I was trying to think of where it says that Moshe left Aaron and Hur in charge before he went up to the mountain. And I know it's also in the text, but I don't remember exactly where that was. So if somebody wants to find that, they can before he goes up. It's probably maybe in Mishpatim, actually. So that Aaron, as a leader, wanting the best for the people, even at the risk of his own reputation. So it was really incredible. Patricia.
I thought I had heard at one time that the tablets were sapphire.
Yes, the tablets were sapphire.
Where does that come in?
Where do we have that? So that comes in from talk about Parsha Mishpatim. Let's turn to Parsha Mishpatim, and it talks about the throne, God's throne, and it is, I'll find it for you. 1 second. Page 443. Actually, go back to page 441. Chapter 24, verse 9 and verse 10. Moses, Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, and 70 elders ascended. This is up to Mount Sinai. They saw the God of Israel, and under his feet was the likeness of sapphire brickwork. And it was like the essence of the heaven in purity. So it says that this sapphire brickwork, sapphire, that was the stone. It says, what stone did God use to make the first tablets? It said he took it from the brickwork like under his throne and used that, and they were carved out of sapphire. That is not the way you picture it from the movie The Ten Commandments, where it looks like two big slabs of concrete. Because the message and the material, form and function, message and material were the same, that sapphire is precious and the words were going to be precious on them, but still very heavy. So then the question actually comes, Patricia, that you makes your question even more so, is when God tells Moshe to carve a second set, then what are his, like the concrete knockoffs? I mean, like what are his made of? Like, I'll just paint them blue and then that'll look really like beautiful. It says, no, that miraculously in Moshe's tent, God said, like, look under your tent, that there is a mine of sapphire, and that he took it from his tent and he carved the sapphire. Even more so, there's Midrash that says that Moshe got his little commission on this deal. Moshe got as his wealth, going back when the Jewish people left Egypt, and it says that they gathered the wealth at the sea, that they were the wealth from the Egyptians, or in the wealth that they took out of Egypt that they borrowed, that Moshe had nothing, because Moshe was busy getting the bones of Joseph, that he carried those, and that was the wealth he wanted, and that's the wealth he carried. So Moshe was alone in not having any material wealth, and the rest of the Jewish people were extremely wealthy. In fact, if anything, just going to the side of who's responsible for the sin of the golden calf, Moshe in the Midrash says, God, you're responsible. You're the one who gave them the gold. You give people gold and you take away their leader. And what were you expecting? It's like putting a credit card in the hands of a teenager and dropping them off at the mall. And then you expect that they're not going to go do something crazy. It's like, it's your fault, God. You gave them wealth. But Moshe didn't have. Said, what did he have as his wealth? It says, God told him he could have the shards of the sapphire when the letters were carved out of it. It's like, where does that go? You know, when you carve out, it's like, that was a lot of text on there, and that Moshe got the sapphire, and that was his wealth. That was his physical wealth that he had. Not that there were any stores to buy anything, by the way. So it was a little bit like monopoly money, but still, wealth speaks even if you don't have a store to go to. So that he had something, and that's what he had. Okay. All right. So the whole story about the giving of the tablets to begin with, and how we relate to the gifts that Hashem gives us to bring us to a place. Yes, Andy.
I'm sorry, but could you tell me, did Moshe carved out the words, not Hashem, on the second tablets?
Good question. No, God carved those as well, but Moshe carved, he cut out the pieces of the
Right.
stone to take up, but then God wrote it for him. Yeah.
Okay.
So, thank you. Good question. I think that's right. Hold on one second. Andy, that's actually a really good question. I think that God wrote the second ones as well, but that Moshe brought up the tablets. The first tablets were completely God's work. The second tablets were God's work and Moshe's work. And that it represents another level of, the relationship on different grounds. It's like, now it's gonna be you and me, and not just all me, because the all me thing didn't work so well. It's both. Yes, Anne.
Did you say the first tablets came from under Hashem's
Throne.
throne? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the second tablets came from under Moshe's tent, but both materials were the same. They were both sapphire. So they were both precious. They just came from a different place. Okay, so this story, this narrative of how we understand the sin of the golden calf, and all of the what we learned from it, of what leads people to a place of distress, how a leader needs to be responsive and really understand what's going on with somebody. Somebody can be laughing and sounding like they're having fun, but is it nervous laughter of somebody who's really misbehaving and is at odds with their neshama? Is it kind of like more like the devil's laughter? I hate to say that, but like the Satan's laughter of, I got you to do something wrong. And that kind of fun is not really true simcha, not really true joy. And that a leader really represents the cumulative merit of the people. And therefore they're very much synchronized. And that Moshe's greatness, it wasn't a punishment. It was like the air was pulled out of the balloon. If the air is let out, you are no longer at your same level. So the descent was like, not you go down, it's like you're going down because they're not there with you. But that Hashem, knowing what the Jewish people were doing, does not refrain from giving the Jewish Moshe the tablets, and lets it play out of leader and people and our growth, so that we go through a process that becomes quite precious to us. The 13 attributes of mercy that we recite on every pilgrimage festival, and throughout the Yom Kippur davening, which is the anniversary of the coming down with the second tablets. It's Yom Kippur. That's our greatest, most joyful day. And we constantly reiterate those 13 attributes of mercy, which were only revealed to us at the point when we had made the most grievous error. And it kind of puts the entire human experience for us as individuals and collectively into a different context, where we understand it, that there's, this ebb and flow, mistakes, there's destruction, there's creation, there's error, there's forgiveness, there's humility, there's gratitude. And it's just so much more multidimensional than we tend to think about life being. And the cartoons are great as a reminder, but we have to remember that life is not a cartoon. It's not even a movie. It is operating on so many different planes of existence, as our own lives are as well. And the final message that I think is kind of so much for our time, and so many challenges that people are going through, is the challenge of how we perceive a burden. That if we can put God into the picture, and God's letters into the picture, and our commitment and love and joy and happiness about what we are doing, that the burdens that we carry can become much, much lighter, and we were able to bear. Thank you. And these questions, end of Kitisa. Thank you. Chapter 34, verse 27. Let me just see that. Thank you very much, Dale. 4:27.
Actually, I guess it's verse 28, where it says, he remained there with Hashem
Ah,
40 days.
oh,
and
thank you
40 nights.
very much. Thank you. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. And he, as you see, is capitalized, meaning he Hashem and not he Moshe. Thank you very much, Dale. Okay. I think what's a little confusing is where Hashem says to Moshe in verse 27, write these words for yourself. For according to these words have I sealed a covenant with you in Israel. So we have like a little bit, I'm not exactly sure. So there's probably a lot of Torah around that, but then it very clearly says, and he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. I'm not sure. So Andy, your question opens up a whole big other exploration to be discussed and discovered at another time. So everything we have, this is a very powerful Parsha. This is a standalone Parsha. It says all the other Parshas in the book of Shemot, of Exodus, have a partner that goes together, and the Parsha of Ki Tisa stands alone, that it is unique in what it has to offer us in both its mistake, unique for the Jewish people, that's not our main way of being, and also unique in that we are given the gift of the 13 attributes of mercy, and that's the package, that we shouldn't think that there's two separate things. It shouldn't be two Parshas. One Parsha we have the sin, and another Parsha we have the remedy. It's in the same Parsha. It's like as they say, the machla and the refuah, that the illness and the medicine come together in the same package, and that's what we're supposed to understand, and that hopefully we can feel this and feel a sense of weightlessness and less burden by attaching God to it as we all carry through in each of our challenges that we go through in our lives. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, a wonderful rest of your week, a good Shabbos, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions they want to stay on and ask, that's fine. Feel free to unmute for a few minutes.
Yasher Koach, and it was amazing.
Oh, and Mazel Tov to Gabi. I'm so glad that you're on. Gabi is now the new grandmother of twin boys. So she has just entered the grandmother scenario, which is a great club to belong to. So Mazel Tov.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies, have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much for sharing today with me. You inspire me. Thank you.
You inspire us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ellyn.
And thank you also for the people who look things up as questions come up. I really appreciate having our panel of experts standing by.
Thank you, Marsha. So sweet. Someone wanted to ask you something. I heard Ellyn.
Yes, who, what?
Okay. I don't know. Who was it? Someone said Ellyn.
Somebody had a question? I don't see a question. But if someone does, they should feel free to unmute and ask.
It always takes it when you ask any questions, it takes us time because we are unmuted, so it takes a minute. So that's the reason that we don't, right? It takes time. So sometimes you have to wait a little longer and you might get questions when you ask.
I'll be happy to do that. I'll be like a game show and like have the clock ticking. Dun, 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 dun.
So funny.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Marsha.
Hi, Marsha.
Was it just the 10 commandments that were chiseled into the sapphire, or was it the entire Torah?
Beautiful question. It was just the 10 commandments were on
Okay.
the actual tablets. That being said, Moshe also received the Torah. So it's
Into its head.
into his head, but that he might also have written some things down. I'm not sure. It's not, I'm not really so clear about that, but that he got it as a download of everything way beyond what his intellectual capacity could hold. But it was only again in the merit of the Jewish people that God said, I'm giving it all to you so you can teach it to everybody else. So great question, really good question.
All right. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, ladies. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Tova. They're all texting. So
Thank you.
Gabby, you just
Bye.
be the best darn grandma. You help out everybody that you can, because it's going to be fabulous, but pretty darn hectic.
tell me about it. Yeah. Yeah, they're still in the NICU. So
Yes. but that's good because they have the best care.
Yeah, Children's Hospital, amazing. Absolutely.
Beautiful. That's so nice.
Oh, bye, everybody. And thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
everybody.
It's great to see
And thank you
you.
especially for that line about the burden, carrying the burden. And when it has a purpose, it's lighter. That is such a good one.
I thought it was from Rabbi Yaakov Haber. I thought it was so beautiful. Really a beautiful message.
Who said that it goes?
Yeah. All right, I'm signing out.
Okay, me too.
All right.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Ellen.
Thanks,
Mhm.
Janice. Bye, Gabi. Bye, Tova.
Right. And so what you said, if God is in the equation, the burden will be lighter always. That's what you
That's
said.
right. That's right.
I agree. And also, if you're in the equation, your classes elevate us a census, and
Oh,
really,
thank you.
you totally
you.
sustained us through the pandemic. But people
Oh,
talk,
I don't know. I have to say, having all of you to learn with has just been such a huge blessing. I'm so grateful.
you're very humble. Thank you. But
It's true.
absolutely,
It's such a bracha.
so thank you.
All right, ladies, take good care. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
You too,
Ellen. Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.